G'day YouTube, my name's Lance. Welcome to Bundy Bear's Shed. I've decided to do a video on timing the 23C engine that was a common thing in the FE35s. And what brought me to this was I'm doing my little one up here that had water leaking into the sump, and I bought off my neighbour Grumpy Dave that people who watch the channel will know about. Now, because I'm going to tidy this tractor up and do not a full restore. It's had a new engine in it, but it's had trouble, so I'm just going to run through a few things. And I've decided to have a look at the injection pump timing, pull the injection pump off. I'm going to just run a seal kit through it, easy job. I have videos on that, and look, I might film it again, we'll just see. But I was lucky enough to get hold of some of the original service bulletins on injection pumps and injection pump timing, and I thought I'd just do a quick video down the other end on little ways of doing things, because on Facebook everyone says I've put the pin in, I've locked the flywheel, I've turned the pump to the letter G, and my engine's still not starting or something like that. And look, it may well be some other problem. It doesn't mean it's timing. But back on the 20th of March 1957, the Ferguson put out a service bulletin. And look, these service bulletins, I'll try and remember to put a link in the description of this video, and that will be a link to my website, bundybearsshed.com.au. And in the technical section, I've started to copy any service bulletins I have and things like that. And look, they're all for free. Hop on and download them. You'll see on the bulletins there's a Bundy Bear's Shed watermark. I'm a firm believer that information should be freely shared, so I've watermarked everything. That doesn't mean you can't use it, but it means there's less chance of it getting on eBay in a bundle of these bulletins that are for sale. Yeah, people can hop in on their own and get them for free, use them, print them out, take them into the workshop, like I've done here, sit them next to the tractor while you're working on it as a reference. So it's all for free. Information should be freely shared when you're in this hobby. But okay, so in 20th of March 1957, now my tractor is the engine block is dated the 27th of August 1958, so it's a little bit later, so this is relevant, the changes will have been made. So in this bulletin it says in fuel injection pump timing type DPA. Further to service information 53, 56 and yeah, so the original injection timing specified in technical literature, easy for me to say, as 16 before top dead centre was bulb timing and is equivalent to 17 degrees circlip timing. So bulb timing required special equipment and personnel training for its use for engine tests bed purpose only. So that was a factory setting that they did in the factory only. Circlip timing, which is how we do it nowadays, circlip timing is the only authorised method for use in service. So all reference to injection timing in the crankcase, all reference to injection pump timing is in crankshaft degrees. We found that constant variation between bulb timing and circlip timing has an average of 1 degree. So it can be at a degree or two anyway. In the more modern engines, a degree or two makes a lot of difference. Thus, where previously the timing had been referred to as 16 degrees because that's bulb timing, it will henceforth be referred to as 17 because this is the equivalent service method of the circlip timing. So, whilst existing normal timing is given at 17, the best timing can vary from this value depending on technical developments in the injection system. In fact, according to the particular specification of the injection pump, which might be used, it can vary from 13 to 19 degrees. Although no pumps requiring setting below 17 are presently visualised, and this is in 1957. Thus, it's not possible to arrange the flywheel drilling for crankshaft location to suit all these variations. So, and what they're saying there is, as the pump's changed, and I'll give you a photo outside of the later pump with the low load advance on it. As things changed, they didn't re-drill the crank or the flywheel to a 2 degree difference or a 3 degree difference. So the drilling in the flywheel is always 16 degrees. The flywheel is in fact drilled to set the crankshaft for number 1 and number 4 pistons at 16 degrees before top dead centre, which is the average of possible timing specifications. All injection pump assemblies are marked on the pump flange to give 17 degrees. And this forms a basic reference point. So that's where your injection pump bolts on. You'll see on the outside top bolt on your injection pump where the 1/2 inch spanner goes, there's a little line there. That's the timing mark that they've set at 17 degrees, and there's one on the timing cover. The amount of change from this timing is readily obtained reference to any separation of the two marks. So what they've worked out, for instance, a separation of 1 millimetre, which equals 40 thousandths of an inch of that mark, represents a change in 2 degrees in timing. Amend the procedures already detailed in the service bulletins to include the following. By means of timing holes in the flywheel and crankcase, set number 1 piston to 16 degrees top dead centre, before top dead centre on the stroke. So what they're saying is turn your engine over in direction of rotation that it would normally run, and pop your pointer in the hole and try and find that hole in the flywheel. Obtain a circlip timing by aligning the scribed mark G, so that's that little diamond shaped plate on the side of your pump. When you're in the right place, the letter G should be coming around, and there's a line next to the letter G. And in the circlip, there's 2 holes in the circlip, and on the bottom hole of the circlip, there's a little line scribed. And that line should line up with the letter G when it all lines up, when it's there. So obtain circlip timing by aligning the scribe mark G with the mark on the circlip timing ring as explained in the previous instructions. It's essential during this process that the tension on the drive chain be maintained. This can be done by removing the front cover plate, so that's where the tacho drive is if you have one, and inserting a tongue into the splines of the pump drive gear, exerting pressure anti-clockwise as seen from the front of the engine. So where the tacho drive comes out. And we're going to go up and we're going to just run through this just to give you a visual of what all this looks like. Then I'm going to pull the pump off and play with it. So I just thought I'd take this time to show a process. The accurate alignment of the circlip mark on the timing mark G is very important and will be realised when considering an out of line of 1/2 millimetre there is equivalent to 2 thou. So if you're out a little bit, just 1/2 millimetre, which is 20 thousandths of an inch, a hacksaw blade is 25 thousandths of an inch. So just that little bit on that letter G can make a 2 degree difference. Advance injection timing 1 degree by swivelling the pump anti-clockwise viewed from the front, 20 thou measured on the radius of the mounting flange, scribe a line on the drive case flange in line with the mark on the pump. The injection timing is now set at 17 degrees before top dead centre. Engines now being produced, so this is in 1957, engines now being produced have the initial injection timing of 17 degrees before top dead centre, so the letter G with the line lined up is 17 degrees. And the drive casings are marked to align at that setting. So if you put your timing pin in and line your pump up and line the letter G up, you're 17 degrees before top dead centre. However, while 17 must always be used as a basic setting, it's possible that a tractor can be received with these marks out of line by 1 millimetre so they're a bit hit and miss, thus giving the injection timing or circlip marking of 19 degrees before top dead centre. This is being done to suit the characteristics on particular engines. If any are found where the marks are more than 1 millimetre apart, the timing is over advanced and should be set back to 1 millimetre. So look, they're just giving you a quick guideline there on how to time your engine. And now we'll put that over there for the moment on the junk. Now, on the 20th of March 1959, they brought out a light load advance, which is a little housing under the injection pump, and that pump, the pump with light load advance is timed at 13 degrees before top dead centre, as the scribed line on the pump mounting flange remains at 17 as a datum point. This pump is therefore 2 millimetres retarded from where it should be. 2 millimetres retarded from that line. Under cold conditions, particularly if the engine is new and inclined to be stiff, and also where the oil and combustion chambers are cold, quite a load is required to produce maximum engine speed. The light load advance may therefore be inoperative until the engine's warm. However, after a warming up period, say 1 minute at a fast idle, then progressively advancing to full throttle for a further 4 minutes, the advance should be operative. And then the bulletin there, and it's bulletin dated the 20th of March 1959, and on my website I've actually got a date on each bulletin, on the modification ones anyway. And yeah, the light advance is a cam advance which is hydraulically operated by the transfer pressure, so that's a little vane pump at the end, but instead of being responsive to speed, it's also arranged as to be responsive to metering valve rotation position and therefore load. So look, we won't go into that. The whole bulletin is available on my website, like I said, for free. Well, I don't like charging for anything like that. So look, what we'll do, there's a couple of little things that I've noticed, and while I've got the head off, I've got a dial gauge set up on number 1 piston, and I've got a screwdriver that I've used for ages for putting through the hole, and it's 3/1000ths of an inch under 1/4 of an inch, and I'd like to show you the difference that makes compared with a piece of brass that is exactly 1/4 of an inch. So it's just a change in piston height, and it can make a variance, so the 1/4 inch is important to try and get that exactly right. But follow me over and we'll set the camera up at the tractor, and yeah, we'll see what mischief we can get up to over there. Okay, we're over at the tractor now, and I have the timing pretty well set. Now, what I would like to bring to your attention is the book says 1/4 inch pin in the hole. So I have a piece of brass here that is bang on 1/4 of an inch. It's probably not going to focus on that, but what I've used for ages is this Stanley screwdriver with a point on it here, Phillips screwdriver, and this, when I mic it up down this end here, we're 3/1000ths of an inch under 1/4 of an inch. So even though you think that's probably pretty close, I'll just show you a little difference. Now, I'd like you to take notice of the needle over on the dial gauge here. So I've got the peg in, and I've got it only just in. Now that's going from 50 to 41 to 50. So on the piston height, there's 9/1000ths of an inch difference in piston height. When I press it right in as far as it'll go, that's 42 to 49, so 7/1000ths. That's piston height difference, and that's just in movement of the crankshaft. So when we put this 1/4 inch piece of brass that we know is correct, there's a few shadows there, but it's just because of the light. Oh well, of course it is, Lance. Okay, and I've got that 1/4 inch brass pressed right home, and now by pushing that up and down, I'm only getting 1/1000th of an inch. So having that, I suppose the point I'm trying to make here is that having that 1/4 inch brass as close to quarter as you can, it has to make things a lot more accurate. Now they're stuck in there. No, it's not. So, okay, so we've got that there. Now we have the pump line marked up here. Now there's a little scribe line on the flange and there's a scribe line on the flange of the pump. And we have the plate off the side of the injection pump. Now, when you look in there, and I'll take a photo of this shortly and put up, but my letter G here does not line up with the circlip, and even when I advance the pump right around there, it still doesn't line up. So you'll notice that the pump hasn't got any paint on it. So the pump has been done up at some stage. There's a new gasket under here. And look, all I can say about my pump is that when they did the pump up at some stage in its life, they didn't go through the process of setting that circlip up. And look, I can do that here. Now, once the pump's on the bench, I can't do it on the tractor. And how you do that is on your number 1 injector line here, when the pump's off, just put air up there and you can turn the pump until it just locks in that firing on number 1 position, and we should be able to adjust that circlip. But okay, let's just pretend for the moment that my circlip is lined up and we'll go from there. So on the front here, now this is a drive shaft. It's an injection pump drive shaft off another engine that I pulled apart. Now, to put the tension on the drive line system, and look, we're presuming that you've actually turned the engine in direction of rotation to get this peg in, so we know that's correct. You don't actually have to have this. You can actually get a piece of plate, just a little piece of like 5/8 steel, and grind a little 45 on one side, and you'll see that there's a master spline. Where are we? There. So you can see there's a master spline there and a bigger spline there. So you can actually put a little piece of bar or something in there. So you can make that yourself. So there is a proper tool for it, but like me, you won't have it. So look, what they're saying is to line up your letter G, hold this across, so towards the engine at the top, which is anti-clockwise from the front of the engine, and your letter G here should line up. Now, what we know from the bulletin is that the letter G lined up there is actually, on this pump, it'll either be 16 or 17 degrees, so possibly 17 degrees. So if we're going to and set the pump up to say 19 degrees, and look, in practice over the years, my experience tells me that sometimes you advance these pumps a little bit and it seems to help them out. But this is presuming that you have a good timing chain. Like if your timing chain's worn, resetting your timing after your chain's worn, this all gets out of whack. So you can actually use a worn timing chain and do it, but it's better not to. But so if you actually advance your pump a millimetre here, so if this is set at 16 degrees bulb timing, not bulb timing, 16 degrees circlip timing, and this lines up here and that lines up there, if you move the pump forward by 1.5 millimetres, something like that, that'll bring you up to the 19, and I think they'll probably start better there. But anyway, I suppose it's up to you whether you want to stick with the line with the early timing or go later. Now, when you have the pump with the light load advance underneath here, it's set at 13 degrees, so you may have to make adjustments again. So print the bulletins out, try and understand them if you can. But there's little things in the job that make it a better job. But I see people and they say, oh, I've turned the engine over, I've put the pin in, I've lined up letter G and it still doesn't start. Look, these bloody tractors were like that. But if you get this right, what I would suggest if you're having trouble starting it still, and what I do myself is, it says don't go any more than 19 degrees, but in theory I found if I go and buy an old tractor and it's not starting real well, sometimes I'll loosen the injector lines, I'll loosen the pump, I'll crank it way over there, nip it up, and sometimes that helps it start better. And you know, when you crank it up, you get it going a lot easier. But look, be a bit careful doing that. But there'd be nothing wrong with advancing your pump 1.5 millimetres here. That would give you the 19 degrees for that. If you have the later pump, read the bulletin. But yeah, if they're set at 13 degrees before top dead centre, and that's your circlip timing, you may have to adjust this again the other way. So just by lining up letter G and lining up the 17 there, you actually haven't got the timing at its optimal. And if you haven't used an exact size on your bar here, you're leaving yourself for error there. Now, on these old engines, there's a couple of degrees timing going to matter much. I don't know, they're hard starters, every little bit helps. So anyway, you make up your own mind with that, read the bulletins, and yeah, I just thought I'd do a bit of explaining there, and yeah, look, it might help someone out. Just as an add-on to this little video, I've got the injection pump off and I've got it sitting up in my little bracket that I made for resealing these pumps. And I thought I would just check where the letter G is. So what I've done, you can actually turn the injection pump backwards a little bit, because this injection pump comes this way, and to check if your circlip is lined up. Now look, how it should be done is you have a pipe here on an injector tester and you pump up to 100 pounds, something like that. And as you turn this shaft back clockwise from this end, when the rollers drop into the cam in the point of injection, that's when it'll get hard to turn. But look, just a quick test for you at home is this back one here. So when you look at this end of the pump, it's at about 2 o'clock, I suppose. Get a bit of compressed air and blow down the hole and turn this pump you can just feel it go hard. So we'll start again, put some air up it, bring it around, and that's just gone hard there. You can actually feel the proper little notch. So what we do then is we look inside here, and I can see on my pump here that instead of timing it to the mark on the circlip, which is the mark on the little hole, so you have the top hole in the circlip and the bottom hole in the circlip, the bottom hole on these early pumps has a little scribe line there, and that's what it's normally timed to. Now the later pumps, they were timed to the flat edge, which is the bottom edge, the flat edge on the circlip. And when I look at mine here, mine's timed to the flat edge of the circlip, not the line down further. So I suppose there's no problem with that as long as you know. But if you're trying to time this pump to the bottom, to the hole, the little line in the hole, it'd be no good. So I'll try and put a photo here and just let you see what it looks like in there. But yeah, that's why my pump's out. It's been timed to the circlip, the wrong mark on the circlip, which is, look, it's no big deal.